Greetings, Kindred. I am voivodemekhet, and this is the final episode of Tapping the Vein for this section. With me is Silent Comedy. Say hi, Silent.
Hello.
And today we are going over The Duskborn. These guys are great. I love them, and they are a wonderful example of what vampires are going through, evolutionarily speaking, as their blood gets thinner and thinner. Silent doesn't have much to say about these guys.
Look, it could. I mean, you know me, and if the community doesn't by now, here's their wake up call.
Mhm.
I love to talk, and I will talk about anything and nothing sometimes for hours on end. Maybe it's just the mood I'm in today. I don't
Uh-huh.
know what it is, or maybe it's just my experience. But I don't have a lot to say about the Thin Bloods.
I don't think you've ever
I
had a
think
lot to say about the Thin Bloods. I don't think it's just
I
today.
haven't. Yeah, I haven't. I think the claim that they are the next evolutionary step to vampires
Uh-huh.
is rather bold, and my inner caitiff wants to fight you for that statement. Because
Oh,
he's
no, no, no,
the
no.
caitiff for the next evolutionary
No, no.
stage of
The
vampires.
caitiff walked so the Thin Bloods could run.
Ah, I see.
I'm
Yeah.
definitely going to give
Well,
all the credit because Thin Bloods are caitiff. They're just
they
a
are.
subsection of caitiff.
They are. But let's, to reference one of my favorite hip hop songs, the butterfly can't forget that it came from the caterpillar.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. And I would never, ever say that the caitiff aren't like integral to this. But I really do feel like this is kind of a change my mind uh, episode with you right now. The whole like,
oh, I mean, I don't want it to be that. Uh, I'm mostly just playing. Like the Thin Bloods are cool, man.
yeah,
Like I don't really hate the Thin Bloods or anything. I think that 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 is one of those moments where it just feels like thou doth protest too much. Uh, um, I don't know. The Thin Bloods are cool. I think I'll be honest with you. I think I liked the Thin Bloods more in older editions than I
uh-huh.
do in fifth edition.
Okay, I can see that because the Thin Bloods you used to be able to create your own disciplines and things like that.
Which I mean, you technically, with the way alchemy is written, you still
Yeah,
can,
but it's
and
not at the same time. Like you're not
it's not at the same time.
creating new Thin Blood clans and stuff, which is what like older editions when they mentioned Thin Bloods, it kind of sounded like it was just gonna keep going. Like
Yes. Yeah.
the way that it sounds, it still kind of sounds that way, but it was like everything under fifth generation for the fifth generations was considered Thin Blood.
Yeah.
And then like in the Dark Ages, when the first like 12th and 13th gen population popped up, they were considered the harbingers of Gehenna, and they were the Thin Bloods.
Yeah.
So now we've got like generations 14, 15, and 16. Those are the Thin
That is
Bloods.
that is something that I will say I find to be interesting because in older editions, the generate like this is one of my favorite things about the Thin Bloods. So I don't they're not all like meh in my opinion.
Hmm.
Um, in older editions, 15 was the end of Cain's line,
Right, right. They couldn't go any
and
further.
now we're getting into the 16th
Yeah,
generation,
which makes
and
me.
technically, because of the way it is mechanically written, it can go to the 17th and the 18th. And no matter how far you go past 14, you're all still the same.
Now I'm wondering,
You're
like,
all on equal playing field.
I'm wondering if in 500 years we're going to see like the 20th, 21 generation stuff like that, and they're the Thin Bloods.
So
Like, what are the Duskborn just going to be called after that? You know?
when they released Requiem, Requiem was supposed to be like a separate thing, but it also had like hints of like, this is what happened because Requiem came out after the Time of Judgment
Yeah,
book and all the Gehenna scenarios.
yeah. It
Like
kind of gave
White
it
Wolf
hints that
wrote
like,
them.
this was later. Yeah.
Yeah, like it was a later after Gehenna, and these are the only clans that survived. You know,
Hmm.
um, and so the 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 Vampire Sixth Edition or Seventh Edition, maybe,
Hmm.
is gonna be. I think it's gonna be like the homebrew setting that I talked about in the Kadeth video,
I mean,
where
that's
like
100% possible.
everybody is you make a vampire, and then you can take like a flaw and be like, I still have remnants of the ancient's blood, where it's like I still have clan veins,
Hmm.
or whatever the mechanical representation of that looks like. Um, and I think at some point in a future edition, both narratively and mechanically, they are going to write the generation aspect of the game, of the lore, even out of the game, because eventually, like, it's not gonna. Generation stops mattering after 14.
It seems like it, yeah.
Yeah, because if the 14 can embrace the 15th, and they're still just thin bloods, and the 15th can embrace the 16th, and they're still just thin bloods, well then the 16th can do the 17th and 18th and so on, and they're all just thin bloods.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
then so
there's some limitations on things, but like that doesn't mean those limitations are going to hold forever.
right, and that's what I'm talking about. So as of the moment, the thin bloods don't interest me.
Okay.
What they could mechanically become in future editions is what interests me. I'll say that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So
Well,
as they are momentarily, they are like watered down vampires.
yeah. So let's hop into powers.
Okay.
Powers of the blood that the thin bloods have. First and foremost, it's going to be the thing that people are going to want to talk about when it comes to this is that the Thin Bloods,
Hmm.
as it says in the book, pioneered and practiced the arts of blood alchemy, which is effectively the idea of potion making
Hmm.
using blood. So it's like it's a sidestep. It's not blood sorcery. It's not rituals. It's not ceremonies. It's literal chemistry. It's
Yeah.
been compared to cooking meth
Yep.
in its own way. It has multiple ways that it can work, which I've spoken with the author, like with one of the authors of
Oh,
the
really?
Laws of the Night book, and they've cut
Yeah.
it down to the point where everything's been a lot more simplified for blood sorcery, or sorry, thin blood alchemy, and as it should be in a LARP setting. It's a lot harder
Mhm.
to use a furnace and stuff like that in LARP when you're trying to
Yeah.
get things accomplished. But in tabletop, you've got these details where you can pump it through a human, you can use your own body to cook it, you can use some kind of cooking mechanism like a furnace or stove or something like that. Like there's lots of different ways that Kindred have decided how it works. And it's kind of a choose your chosen method where,
Hmm.
in my opinion, if I had written this, I would basically say that each formula has to be made in a certain way. But they decided not to go with that, which is all cool. But like, it's the idea of mixing ingredients with blood and then yourself with certain resonances to get specific effects, which are very old school thaumaturgical. To the point
Isn't
where I've
the
seen a lot of Tremere players get jealous of Thin Blood Alchemy.
isn't the whole like the four humors, isn't that like alchemical in origin
Yes.
anyways?
Yeah. The
Okay.
idea of the four humors, it's alchemical slash medical from the Dark Ages. Um,
Okay.
so yeah.
So I I don't I could not tell you
Okay.
where it's at. It might just be in the core book. I haven't really looked at it in a while.
Okay.
Um, but an interesting facet about out the blood alchemy is that it's referred to as thin blood alchemy,
Yes.
but the official name for it is actually just blood alchemy.
Okay.
So, and it's a discipline, and it's the only in-clan discipline native to the thin bloods.
Okay.
But it is a discipline,
Arguably.
arguably.
Arguably. I would say that what you're doing is tainting the properties of the blood to get specific effects because your blood is too weak to actually do things on its own. I don't
Yes.
know where you would see it saying just blood alchemy. I'm not denying that it says that, but like in the you have to take a merit to use it. First off,
Yes. Well,
um,
no, you don't. You don't have to take a merit to use it. That's a big misconception with the Thin
okay,
Bloods. You have to take a merit to start with one dot in it and one free formula.
okay,
Thin Thin Bloods
it,
inherently can learn Thin Blood Alchemy at any time given XP, and it is at in clan cost. The issue with doing it that way and not taking the merit to start with a free dot and a free formula
hmm
is that it takes a lot of downtime to acquire like it takes a lot of downtime for your character to actually learn these processes
yeah. There
because
is a merit called
each
Thin Blood
power.
Alchemist, is what we're talking about now.
Yes, yeah. So, but you don't have to take the merit. Your Thin Blood does not have to spend a merit on it to learn Thin Blood Alchemy.
Mm. It's to start
They
with
just
it.
have to do it to start with it. Yeah.
Other than that, though, Thin Bloods gain a level 1 discipline associated with what resonance they feed from whenever they feed until the next time they feed. So they gain temporary disciplines depending on what they drink.
This is actually fun. I'm not gonna lie.
I like this.
This is actually fun. I have played one Thin Blood. He wasn't a Thin Blood for very long because I took the Banu Hakim Bane and
hmm
I Diablo. So, oops. Um, but the the Swiss Army knife discipline powers
Yeah.
is actually a lot of fun.
And you can't
So like
store resonances. You
yeah,
can't have like bottles of caloric, sitting in your pocket for when you want potence or celerity. It has
yeah,
to be fresh. So like
yes.
you are definitely bound to whatever happens to walk by in a stressful situation.
hmm But it can be a lot of fun because you don't you can't like build a strategy.
hmm
If you're in a stressful situation and you're like, man, I need to eat because like what I like my abilities are just not useful in this scenario, or like, man, my hunger's getting out of hand, and you just grab a random human off the street,
Yeah.
you know, you're then your whole power set shifts, and you're like, well, I guess I have to make this work because I don't have any other options. So
Yeah.
it can be a lot of fun.
Now, it also says that if the resonance that you feed from is intense or strong enough, you gain an additional dot of that power. So you can actually
Yes.
go up to a level 2. And as a storyteller, because of the way that it's phrased, I would
hmm
specifically say that that is if you feed from somebody and it gives you a dyscrasia.
Well, it's actually the Dyscrasia is the next level up, and unfortunately, the Dyscrasia doesn't give them any more dots of disciplines.
Okay.
There's I think it's fleeting and intense are there's fleeting, intense, and acute. Acute is the resonance like level that would give you a Dyscrasia.
Okay.
Fleeting is what would give them the first level power, and intense is what would give them the second level power.
Okay. I don't think I've actually stumbled upon that mechanic in my game yet.
Oh,
So,
okay.
which is kind of interesting. I did not realize that there were different levels of the resonances. I actually thought that it was here's no resonance, resonance, or dyscrasia was where I saw that happening. But I'm really glad that you pointed that out to me. It gives me something to study.
Yeah, I think, and you'll have to fact check me on this because it's been a minute since I've read it myself. But I do think that the base system says that vampires like you have to have a fleeting resonance to increase a discipline,
Mhm.
but you can actually get a bonus to discipline die pools from the resonance that you drink if it is intense or acute.
Okay. See, I've always just said if you get resonance, you just automatically get a bonus. I've always like at my table, I've always done that. Of course, I've got 8 people at my table right now, so like that's just me
Yeah,
trying not to like House of Cards fall down. Um,
that's so you don't have a lot of book work. Yeah, if you have a big
exactly,
table,
exactly. I have too big
you
of a
can
table at the moment.
simplify it. Yeah.
Now, these disciplines that they get from feeding last until they reach hunger 5 or until the next feeding. So you can minorly try and plan things. At
Hmm.
least you can at the beginning of the night. Like it's a good idea. Oh, I got to interact with some kindred. Maybe I should like feed on some sanguine and make my presence a little bit easier to deal with. It would be really really nice to have some awe. You know,
Yeah.
just give me that one extra dice in a social conflict, or like I'm gonna eat some caleric because I may very well have to like rabbit jump away or some stuff like that. Like it's like that's important. Especially because those are disciplines that they get access to that typically do not have a rouse check involved in them.
Yes. Yeah.
Because level
And they're
ones and
good.
twos are a little bit easier on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the thin blood. I don't want to get ahead of you.
Oh
But
yeah,
like the
go ahead.
thin blood do have an interesting dynamic with hunger and the beast.
Hmm.
That is diluted, much like their powers. Their
Yeah, that
weaknesses
was
are
actually
also.
the next thing I wanted to go into was the hunger and frenzy system for thin bloods.
Yeah, go for it.
It's just that all thin. It says straight out. I mean, it's straight. It's straight to the point here. It's like all. It says a thin blood suffers hunger just as any vampire. However, the beast is far less overt, and a thin blood vampire never frenzies unless provoked by supernatural means such as animalism. So
Yep.
they still suffer from your messy critical. They still
Hmm.
suffer from your bestial failure, but they don't actually outright lose their shit until
Yeah.
something forces them to do it, such as a gangrel with a grudge, or Zamitzi who wants to make a point, or
Yeah.
anybody else who has animalism or something equivalent that can cause them to be
A
forced.
Ravnos who wants to make you look really bad in the
Yeah,
Elysium.
absolutely. And of course, it's going to be the Ravno that wants to make you look really bad in Elysium due to the fact that if you don't look
They're
bad, they're
there.
the ones who look bad.
Exactly.
So,
These dang thin bloods. Can't trust them. They always lose their temper.
what are your thoughts on that with the concept of their hunger and their frenzy issues?
I think it makes sense. Like in older editions, this was represented by a them having still some like life in them. So like they had blood pools of 10, but they could never spend more than
Well, it was like two, wasn't it?
yeah, they could never spend more than 8 of their 10 total blood pool.
Was it eight? Okay.
Yeah. So like, your generation 13 had 10 blood points.
Mm-hmm.
Your generation 14s had 10, but they could only spend 9.
Yeah.
And your 15th generation thin bloods only had 10, but they could only spend 8.
Hmm. There's actually
Um,
some. There's actually some mechanics to actually pay attention to when you're playing a thin blood. Unlike fifth
yes.
edition, where you don't have to worry about that and you just have the same issues as everybody else until it comes time to frenzy.
Yeah. And now thin bloods have kind of mechanically assumed uh, they've kind of assumed the mechanics of older editions Revenants and Dampier,
Mm-hmm.
in that
Oh, I want some
in older
revenant
editions,
stuff.
I want some Dampier in 5th edition, but we ain't
Yeah.
getting them anytime soon. Um, the in older editions, Thin Bloods could actually learn up to level 3 disciplines. It was incredibly expensive. Um, I think all their disciplines were like times 8.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was stupid expensive for them to learn it, but
It
they could learn
was.
disciplines up to the 3rd dot.
Yeah. Well, now they
Um,
get them for free, and all they have to do is go out to eat.
that's true. Now the Revenants and the Dampier in older editions, they were the ones who were restricted to 1st and 2nd level powers, and only if they fed from really potent Dometers
Mm-hmm.
would they be able to learn up to 4th level.
Okay.
If I'm remembering correctly. So the Thin Blood kind of have like assumed that mechanical kind of relationship with vampires, and that they have a beast, but it's like incredibly docile. They don't actually
Yeah.
frenzy.
Well, they are
Um,
halfway between kindred and human,
right, right,
so it makes a lot of sense.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. I think it's interesting. I haven't got to experience how good it actually feels because the Thin Blood I played still frenzied. So yeah. Um,
All right.
but I think it's a cool. I think it's a cool representation of the fact that they're. I mean, they are weaker.
They
Their
are.
blood is weaker. Their
They
blood
are.
is weaker,
A
but
good number
they're.
of them can walk in the sun, however. But we'll get to that in a few minutes.
Yeah, I was gonna say we definitely want to cover that.
Um, Next, though, we have lifelike. A thin blood always counts as having used blush of life. The exact effects depend on their humanity rating. So basically, what they're saying is even though these are technically kindred, they still have an active circulatory system.
Yep, they do. They
In
have an
my
active circuit.
in my mind, that tells me that thin bloods bleed.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it
Their
doesn't
body is
it
still
doesn't
partially
say there
alive.
anywhere, but that means that the thin bloods still have a heartbeat, in my
Yep.
opinion.
They
Um,
still. Their body naturally breathes. They blink.
mhm. That's kind of crazy. Like
Yeah.
these guys, they crave blood, but they blend in with humans so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. They do. And it takes no effort for them to do
Yeah,
it whatsoever.
absolutely. The sunlight thing. Thin bloods take only one level of superficial damage per turn in direct sunlight. Less direct sunlight causes damage with less frequency. For example, under heavy cloud cover, or if masked or protected by clothing or thick sunscreen, the thin blood might only sustain damage every third turn or once per minute. And that's only superficial damage. Dude, I live in Florida. I take more damage from sun than these guys do right now. Like
Yeah, superficial damage from sunlight. They get really severe sunburns.
sunburns, yeah.
That's pretty much it.
That's pretty
You
cool.
know,
And
you could
there's
if your
creepy
storyteller
there's
if
creepy
your
merits
storyteller
that
wants,
allow them to actually walk in the sun and enjoy it too.
yeah, yeah. You know, if your storyteller wants to really lean into the fact that you're not normal, so it's not just a sunburn. You
Hmm.
know, like you actually smoke and kind of sizzle like they do in like the like vampire media.
Yeah.
You know, the vampire will be in sunlight for several seconds and
Yeah, and
just
it's just a
sizzles.
little bit of smoke coming off their skin. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I personally think I like that representation of the Thin Blood's
I
relationship with the sun.
I like that too, and again, it has a lot to do with how bright it is and things like that. Those are things you actually have to
Yeah,
consider that you could be running a vampire game with the sun up,
that's true. Yeah.
which
I mean,
like that blows
there's a
my mind, man.
I mean, I don't know if we're ready to get into the merits yet or not, but there is a whole coterie type
Hmm.
dedicated to Thin Bloods because they can be awake during the day.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
I forget the exact name of it. It's like Day Watch or something.
I think it's called Day Watch. That makes
Yeah.
sense at least. No, Thin Blood merits is actually the next thing I want to cover. It just says Thin Bloods often display additional variations. And it says to go ahead and check out the Thin Blood merits, which there's not that many. So I'm kind of up for taking a look at those if you're interested at all.
Uh, yeah, I mean, let's knock them out. I don't know that we'll have time to get to all of them, but I do feel like we should mention there are more in the player's guide.
Yeah, there are more in the player's guide. We're probably not going to get into those just yet because
Yeah,
this is primarily a look at core book stuff.
yeah.
But it says under the Thin Blood merits that these merits and flaws only apply to Thin Blood characters. They have no dot value, which I love. They actually
Hmm.
took the old Fomore character creation
Oh,
and
really?
put it on Thin Blood. Yeah, because Thin Blood or Fomore in the old book, which was Freak Legion, which I can tell you the look on my players' faces when I pulled that out last night. Um, the book Freak Legion, when you were building a Fomore, it said take flaws equal to powers. There's a little
Okay.
bit more. There's a little bit more detail on this one. It says that they have no dot value. Each flaw balances with a merit, and vice versa. They thus do not count against the maximum dots in advantages and flaws allowed at character creation. I do believe that it does say somewhere in the book that they are only allowed to take like up to three.
Yeah, yeah. You can
So
take up.
you
You
can't
I think
just take all of them. Like that's just not gonna happen. Which I've seen people attempt.
yeah.
Uh,
You can take up to three. I can't remember if you have to take at least one. I think.
um, I don't know. That's the annoying part about this book is things are a little bit all over the place.
Yeah.
But I do believe you might have to take at least one. I don't really remember. But under the thin blood flaws, just to go over it really quickly, you've got baby teeth, which basically means that you have blunted fangs. So feeding with syringes or cutting people or something like that is going to be more down your alley than biting.
Yeah.
That actually kind of matches with a ghoul flaw as well, as having blunted
Yeah.
teeth.
Yeah.
Um,
You have the spork equivalent of vampire fangs.
Spork equivalent. That's amazing. There is the bestial temper, which basically you suffer from having a beast as if you were a normal vampire. You
Yeah, that
frenzy.
one sucks.
That one lets you from
Being
what
the
I
only
hear.
thin blood to have that one sucked.
Yeah. Branded by the Camarilla, which basically means that you have not only been hunted down by the Camarilla once, but they've actually found a way to sear a symbol. I believe it's usually a crescent moon onto you in some place, your face, your hand, your neck, whatever. They have found a way to mark you as a thin blood so you can be identified by sight.
Yep, it is a
Which,
thaumaturgical. It's
if
implied to be a thaumaturgical process invented by the Tremere.
one of my favorite ways of seeing it is strapping the thin blood down in a room and exposing the part of skin that you want them to get hit, and having a
Ooh,
tiny hole in the ceiling
in the
in
shape
the
of a
shape
crescent.
of the crescent moon so that the sun literally has to work on it all day to make it permanent.
That's actually kind of cool. I like
It's
that.
cruel. This really, like, if you're going to be that inhumane and cruel as the Camarilla, just kill it. Like,
Where's the
why?
fun in that?
I know. It does. I don't know. I don't know.
Like,
Camarilla
it's a
sucks.
the Camarillas. They all suck, dude. That's the
They all
point.
do. Um,
They
so
the
after that
you can't
is
kill a perfectly good political cannon fodder.
That's true. After that is Clan Curse. You start with a Clan Curse,
Hmm.
um, which also kind of designates what your family line is as well. Uh,
Yeah.
Dead Flesh. Dead Flesh is interesting. It says your blood is not strong enough to completely sustain you, and an effect, your flesh is in a constant state of putrefaction, with a greenish tint, faint stench of rot. Any medical inspections will immediately identify you as diseased, and you receive a 1 die penalty to any face to face social tests with a mortal. You cannot take lifelike if you take this flaw. So you are rotting, like
This
you are
one,
a corpse.
this one really sucks.
This one really sucks, but like, could you imagine the idea behind it? Like, building a character based off a flaw is so much fun for me.
Yeah.
And I could definitely see myself taking this and running with it, like just
You know what this
completely
makes
having
me
fun.
think of?
Hmm.
This makes me think of the ghoul from Vampires and is it Vampires in Brooklyn? With the Eddie Murphy Dracula
Oh,
horror movie?
Vampire in Brooklyn. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is
That's what this
amazing.
makes me think
It's
of.
a comedy retelling of Bram Stoker's Dracula with Eddie Murphy. It's a very,
Yeah,
very good movie.
but it's not really a comedy. Like
It's
it's just
not, but it's Eddie
it's
Murphy,
just
so he
funny.
finds a way to make it funny.
Yeah. Well,
It's a
it's
horror comedy.
yeah, it's a horror comedy. Not it's meant to be a serious horror movie,
It's
but it's Eddie Murphy, so like he dresses up. He even does
Oh yeah,
whiteface at one point. Like
he plays like three freaking characters in the movie as
yeah.
Eddie Murphy do. But
Hmm.
I'm just gonna say right now, at the time of this filming, it is free on YouTube. So if you want to watch
Yeah,
it, go watch it. It's a great movie.
I did. It's very good.
It's such a good movie.
But that's what this fall makes me think of is the ghoul from that movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at the ghouls in the Blade franchise. Like
In the
there's
what?
in the first Blade movie, in the Blade
Hmm.
franchise with Wesley Snipes and stuff.
Yeah.
In the first Blade movie, the nurse that he has that was bit that they're trying to cure and all this stuff gets dumped down a hole at some point in time, and her ex boyfriend is
Yeah.
down in the dark, craving human flesh. Like
Yeah. I
it
forgot about
really
that.
is kind of a Renfield kind of situation.
Hmm.
But they just decided to amp it up to 11. But yeah, that's really where dead flesh comes from. Then we have mortal frailty. You cannot rouse the blood to mend, instead healing as a mortal. You cannot take the vampiric resilience if you take this flaw. So in other words, you have to heal the way a human does, which sucks.
Uh, Paul Milliner, I believe, took this fall.
Yeah, Paul. Oh my God, I
He,
felt so
he
bad for him. He got
he
his
spent most of the story in a cast and wheelchair.
yeah. He had his leg broken when he was being branded by the
Brandon.
Camarilla because he took that flaw as
Yeah.
well. He had one more flaw, but I was like, I can't do this. Like I was like, he suffered enough. Leave Paul alone.
Man, but I will give Daviga credit where credit is due. Paul is probably to date my favorite thin blood example of a thin blood.
I've known Daviga for about a decade now, a little bit less than a decade, and we've been playing Vampire the Masquerade together for the majority of that. Um, and I have to say, all the characters that I've seen him play, Paul is probably my favorite. Which
It
would
was a really
probably
good
leave him
character.
a little butt hurt because he loves his Tremere, but like Paul is probably my favorite.
Yeah, Paul's a really good character.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there has never been a thin blood that I have actually been afraid of, except for Paul Milliner.
Dude, I
Because
loved
the
I
idea,
loved it.
and first of all, like we should take into consideration, like, good on Daviga for being like, we're playing a Hakata game. I want to play a thin blood
Mm-hmm.
because what's a thin blood Hakata look like? That's actually really just
I love yeah. We're talking about
it's so fascinating.
We're talking about the short storyline that I ran that was 13 episodes called Black Sheep, which is a spin-off from Thicker Than Water. It happened basically while my vampires were doing a Chicago thing. We got bored with Chicago and had to try something else. That's basically what happened.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so my favorite part about Paul is that his sire was his 13th generation uh,
grandson.
grandson, and the dynamic of the relationship did not change after the embrace.
Nope.
Like his grandson was still trying to like take care of his grandpa, and like whenever he would do something stupid, Paul was the grandpa who would take off his slipper and try to smack him with it. And
Yeah,
that made me so happy because like the idea of them chasing each other around the room going, Gramps, stop it, stop it. And it was like, oh my god. And he had three grandkids that were just like the dumbest of the dumb and all embraced.
I actually really like that facet of and I think that's something that's unique to thin bloods.
uh,
In that you can have those kind of relationships where, uh, if you're playing like regular vampire and like you're the grandpa who was embraced by their grandchild because
mhm.
they just couldn't stand to lose you. Like that's a really tragic story, but it doesn't have the same normalcy, like normal, familial human life behind it
Mhm.
as it does with a thin blood. I think it's a really creative and clever thing to do it that way. So
Yeah.
hats off to Daviga
Yeah,
for
no,
Paul. He's one of my favorite
definitely.
characters from the Thicker and Water storylines.
Yeah, no, definitely props to Daviga because that was just a fun character to run for and
And
to
dude,
watch.
and because he didn't have the vampire powers,
Hmm.
he was still the living embodiment of the milliners never letting go of a grudge.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, he
And
took the Milliner Grudge Master lore sheet.
yeah, and you know what's funny is, and I might upset some people by saying this, but I
Go
think
for
Paul Milliner might be the most vampire that I have seen portrayed
it.
in a long time.
I
Because
no, I agree.
he attacks his enemies intelligently through
Yeah,
influences and like a thin blood with influence
yeah.
and resources. That is a scary thin
I
blood,
mean,
man.
R.I.P. Anna Roma. You
Right?
know, after all the damage that Toreador did, she was taken out by a thin blood that she literally just picked on because she
Because she
found out
could.
he was a thin blood.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, serves her right, you
Yeah.
know? I think it's
That's a hell of an
beautiful.
ending to that epic freaking NPC. Also, I'm just saying,
Yeah,
like,
I was gonna well that's what I was gonna say is I think it's a fantastic way for such a antagonistic NPC
hmm
to finally get what was coming to
I
him.
think that was probably
You
the
know?
most successful dispensing of an NPC. Definitely,
Yeah.
like,
I mean, is it is it wrong of me to say that it might be the most successful like scheme initiated by any of the players?
oh no, we talk about how they are just horrible at this constantly. Like,
I'm not trying to dunk on anybody in thicker than water,
I
but
am.
yeah,
Come on, guys.
yeah,
Anyway, no,
you
they're
guys,
fun.
you
They're
guys.
doing a great job.
Oh yeah, I still got that one mare though.
Yeah, well, we'll see how that goes. Um, so then we have Shunned by the Anarchs, which is really sad, in my opinion. We don't really need to go into detail on that one because, duh, it literally means the Anarchs don't like you. And you're thin blood. I would imagine the Anarchs would, like, be a safe haven. But, like, as we saw with the Katif video, they start with suspect no
Mm-hmm.
matter their sect. So, like, the
Yep.
Anarchs don't trust the Thin Bloods either.
Nope.
That's just sad.
I think you're an insane mad lad if you're bold enough to play Vampire the Masquerade in the hardest mode possible.
hmm
I think the Doom games would call it Hurt Me Plenty,
Yeah.
where you take Branded by the Camarilla and Shunned by the Anarchs as your flaws.
Yeah, that would suck. That would suck.
Yeah, put
Um,
me in, coach. I'll give it a shot.
then we have Vitae dependency, which is your blood is unable to sustain vampiric powers by itself unless you drink enough vampiric blood to slake one hunger each week. You lose your ability to gain use of any discipline, including thin blood alchemy. You gain your
Ooh,
powers as soon as you are able to slake at least one hunger with vampire blood. You have to drink from vampires. You
I
are
mean,
susceptible to blood bonds.
a thin blood leech
Yeah.
is literally what every like paranoid nodist elder is afraid of.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. This is the exception that proves the rule when it comes to that kind of thing.
You also kind of get in a little bit into like I don't it's I don't know if it's like a specific thing with like the Blade comics
hmm
or if it's something else that I'm remembering, but there is like this idea that well it kind of goes back to like the what I was saying about the mechanics from older editions being like Revenants and Dampier being able to like sustain themselves more efficiently if they drink Vampire Vitae.
Yeah.
Um, and that like you could have a Society of Leopold lore sheet character.
hmm
I have thought about this before. Uh, who is a thin blood who takes Vitae dependency and Daywalker, and he's a blood leech.
Well, there's evidence in the I believe it's the Inquisition book and also in the Chicago book of thin bloods who work with the Second Inquisition.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are
Well, yeah,
thin bloods that are hunting vampires in the organizations.
yeah. I mean, why wouldn't they? They're hated by everybody,
Yeah.
so
So
any like
why not get used and at least treated well?
yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
I mean,
Um,
I don't know. I don't know if I'd say that the Society of Leopold treats them
well, I just
well.
mean like you're gonna have those that like basically like lock them up and treat them like caged animals until it's time to hunt. But then the smart ones, the smart
Hmm.
hunters, are going to be like, well, here's your apartment. You've got internet access. It is monitored for your safety. Here's your big
Hmm.
screen TV. We can get you anything that you want. Like, they basically placate them. And yeah, sure, after they're done hunting vampires, they're going to turn around and kill that thin blood. But
Yeah,
for the time being, they're going to spend some money to keep them comfortable so that they work with them willingly. Because if
yeah,
that vampire drinks the wrong blood, he's going to start dominating the Society of Leopold.
yeah.
You know?
I mean,
Um,
interestingly enough, too, like I don't know how I've not really read Hunter the Reckoning, so I don't know how close this skirts into
love
Hunter the
Hunter the
Reckoning.
Reckoning. Love Hunter the Reckoning.
But I feel like there's a really valid character concept
Uh-huh.
for the organizational hunter
Okay.
who gets revenge embraced as like punishment for being like from a vampire,
Yeah.
like an adversary he was hunting, right?
Yeah.
Ostracized from the organization and just becomes your run of the mill player character hunter, but he's a thin blood. And he's got the shunned by the anarchs, he's got the daywalker merit, he's got the whatever else that you might want to take with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just a hunter. Like he absolutely, and because he can go out in the daylight, and yeah, sure, he can't use any of his vampire powers in the daytime, but that's fine because he's not feeding off people anyways. He's feeding off of the vampires that he's hunting.
Yeah.
He's staking them in the middle of the day, dragging them back to his place, locking them up in a freezer, and just existing off
Taking
of
it,
them as he
taking his
hunts.
time with
Yeah,
them. Yeah.
I mean, and why wouldn't they? They've been kicked out of the organization, so why? And obviously,
Yeah.
they think it's
Use their
important to keep
skills.
hunting. Yeah, I mean,
That's true. I mean, that kind of reminds me. If I don't know if anybody out there has watched Supernatural,
yeah.
there's a hunter in the first season who is an asshole. He's a vampire hunter. He's got no. He's a great vampire hunter. I'm not gonna say anything against that, but like there seems to be a level of trying to show the Winchesters in that show that it's not all black and white. That there are definitely
Mhm.
shades of gray out there, and that there are people who have like learned to survive, like the vegan vampire, who's
Right.
feeding off animals because they don't want to feed on humans, and they're finding a way to survive regardless of what's happening. And this guy is like, don't care, and just kill him, like
Yeah.
straight out, like that. But he ends up becoming a vampire
Yep.
at some point. Sorry, spoiler warnings for a show that came out 17 years ago. Um, if you haven't watched it, fucking watch it. But he ends up like his whole plan is I'm going to kill all the vampires I can and then kill myself. Like he's
Uh,
dedicated, and he's also if you're talking old before fifth edition Hunter the Reckoning, he's a wayward.
mhm.
He's a wayward. He is a nutball Malkavian hunter. That's that's what waywards were. Is they were not like meant for play. They were meant to be antagonists against other hunters. And
Okay.
that's effectively what this guy is. He is a terrifying monster of a human being that will kill anything in his way to get to his quarry. So,
Fascinating.
yeah. So on the other side of that flaw coin, we have the thin blood merits that you have to pair these with. The first one is going to be Anarch Comrades. You have friends in the Anarchs. So basically, if you don't have Shunned by the Anarchs and you don't have Anarch Comrades, you're effectively just indifferent. So
Okay.
there you go. This lets you start with a couple friends in the Anarchs who are willing to help you out from time to time.
There you go.
The next one is Camarilla Contact. These are people who are in, or these are vampires in the Camarilla who are going to talk to you, but they don't want to be seen with you in public.
Right.
So, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Then you have Cantonating Blood, where you can create blood bonds and perform the embrace as a regular vampire. Any vampire you create this with is a thin blood. So you can make more thin bloods.
There you go.
Day Drinker. Sunlight halves your health tracker, rounded up. But otherwise, simply removes your vampiric ability, including all disciplines and health benefits, and does no other damage. You still suffer from hunger, however, and sooner or later you'll need to sleep. If your health drops below your current sustained damage level as a result of this, you suffer the effects of impairment or torpor, depending on the type of damage, until you are clear of sunlight. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
The
I mean,
idea
you're
that
human during
yeah,
the day. You're
you're
just human
effectively
during the
human
day.
during the day. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And if you hit torpor, if they drag you out, they should be able to wake you up without an issue.
Yeah.
Then you have discipline affinity. Basically, you get to learn a discipline. Um, it's a little bit more difficult than that. It actually says you have an affinity of a certain discipline. Picked at character creation, you gain 1 dot of this discipline and can learn and retain additional dots in it through experience expenditure, as if you were a normal vampire. The experience point costs in the same as an out of clan. Drinking blood with matching resonance does not reward you with any additional dots in this discipline, temporary or not. So you get to choose one discipline that you can actually buy up to the 5th dot.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Um, yeah, this merit is actually this. So I mentioned before we started recording that I don't really have a whole lot of thin blood concepts.
Hmm.
I have come up with a couple in this video, um, but I had a couple of builds, thin
Okay.
blood builds. Um, this is pivotal to both of them.
Okay.
So there are two particular ways of going about it, where you can have a thin blood who actually is like very difficult to pin down as a thin blood.
Okay.
Um, One of them is is through this you can take something like fortitude,
Hmm.
and you could take the distillation method for thin blood alchemy, which is the one that I forget their names, but it's the one where you mix it inside your body, so it looks
Yeah.
like all your discipline uses happen naturally.
Yeah, and that by the way is the only one that's available in LARP currently.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. It's the easiest one to do.
Yeah, they just got rid of the other ones because they felt they were too much trouble.
Yeah. Um, and then the other one is where you could do the one where you actually have to have like a cooking lab,
Uh-huh. Which is
and
my
use this
favorite.
merit. Yeah, and then you use this merit to grab blood sorcery.
Okay.
And so everything you're doing is just alchemic magic.
That sounds fun. You're literally just playing a vampire wizard. You have
Yeah.
ceremonies, you have the powers, you have potion making. Yeah, no, you're just literally playing a wizard vampire.
Yeah.
I like that.
And you can absolutely pretend and like masquerade as a Tremere.
Mm,
Or in the case of the fortitude with the vampiric resilience merit,
hmm.
you can masquerade as a gangrel, I guess. Like you can just masquerade as a full-blooded vampire
Yeah.
because you take damage like a vampire and you have fortitude, so you're going to resist more damage than anything.
Hmm.
And so you're just the guy they call when they know they when they need somebody to take a beating. They call you.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely,
get some
absolutely.
anarch friends, and there you go.
I'm sitting here thinking obfuscate would be a killer discipline to have. With
Yeah,
this kind of thing. Um,
I
I,
mean, I'm not going to spoil any by saying any names, but a thin blood with obfuscate who covers themselves from head to toe uh, could pretend to be a Nosferatu.
that's very true. That's very true. Um, the
You
next
know who I'm
one,
talking about.
yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. The next one is lifelike. You have a heartbeat. You can eat food. You enjoy sexual activities like a mortal. All but the most advanced medical inspections reveal nothing out of the ordinary, assuming that they happen at night. So, yeah, you're basically human vampire. Kind of what I was saying when we first started talking about this. Um, but apparently, there is a merit to have your heart beat and things like that. So there is that.
Yeah.
The next one is Thin Blood Alchemist. The Dustborn change as they feed. Thin Blood Alchemy is the mastery of this process, whether it is a spontaneous or a skilled learn By comparing notes with other blood cookers, you have gained 1 dot and 1 formula in Thin Blood Alchemy. You can purchase additional dots and formula through experience as usual. So this is the one that lets you start with a little bit of blood, blood alchemy, thin
Yep.
blood alchemy.
Yep.
So yeah, you have
Now, I
yeah,
have an interesting. This is a dilemma that I've seen a lot of people in the community talk about, and it's one
okay,
that plagues my home group as well because we don't have an answer.
okay,
I have a default answer because it's the least headache.
hmm
It's the answer with the least amount of headache attached to it. But what happens when a thin blood alchemist say they get 4 or 5 dots in thin blood alchemy?
hmm
What happens when they diablerize and become a 13th generation of the clan that they diablerize? What happens to the thin blood alchemy?
they lose it.
Like, do they completely like it's a waste of they've sunk all that XP into it for nothing?
Out of character, it has always been explained that if something out of your control takes that away from you, that you get those points refunded. So I as an ST, if my 14th generation blood alchemist Thin Blood decided that they were going to track down and diablerize a gangrel or something like that, they would then be a gangrel, and I would tell them that, like, I'm sorry you've lost access to all of your Thin Blood alchemy. Here are the XP that you spent on it, and I would give it
Okay,
back.
so that's how I handle it as well.
Yeah,
I
I
just
think it's
wasn't
kind of
sure.
a dick move not to.
Well, yeah, I'm not gonna. You didn't. I'm not gonna take away something you spent literally like close to 100 XP in developing.
Exactly, exactly. Um,
Um, but I mean, that has some interesting elements to it narratively for like a thin blood who's like really passionate about their alchemy,
mhm.
and then they finally get the thing that they think is gonna make them like respected, and then they lose the thing that they enjoyed.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, and I mean that kind of bends into the whole personal horror aspect of this game.
Yeah.
Like, they are not able to live as a human. They are not able to live as a vampire. And that becomes their whole personality. And when they finally achieved something that gets them out of that, they can find themselves in worse trouble because A, they lost everything that they know how to survive with. They pretty much have to start from scratch.
Hmm.
And there's a good chance that whatever community around that they think that they're going to be accepted by now is going to label them as a Diablerist and hunt them
Yeah.
down.
No, I have seen some instances of that being actually awarded.
Yes, I have seen that as well, where the Camarilla goes, okay, as a reward, I'll let you eat this war criminal we have.
Yeah,
And we'll just sweep that under the rug. But just because you get out on probation doesn't mean your society is going to trust you.
that's true.
Like, they know that you have eaten a vampire. They know that vampire blood tastes better than human blood. They know how addictive that can be. You're untrustworthy.
Yeah,
Regardless
and
of whether or
and
not accepted, you're untrustworthy.
and if you're branded by the Camarilla,
Hmm.
you're always going to be branded.
That's true.
It's like yeah, you're a full-blooded vampire now. Congratulations. We can still tell that you came from
We know what
thin blood
stock you came
garbage.
from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we know we can't trust you. Yeah.
And then the very last one that they have listed in the core book is Vampiric Resilience. You suffered damage as a regular vampire, treating regular puncture and slashing wounds as superficial damage. So that basically just gives you the ability to take more damage than you typically would be able to. It's kind of like a thin blood fortitude in a fashion, which
Well,
which works really well.
it's not. I see what you're saying. I don't know that I'd call it a thin blood fortitude necessarily
Okay.
because thin bloods inherently don't treat slashing and piercing damage as superficial.
No, they treat it as aggravated.
Yes. So if anything, it's like a merit to restore that resiliency, that toughness that
Yeah.
comes with being undead.
Well, that's what I was saying.
Um,
Like, that would be a supernatural toughness. That's why I was
yes.
saying.
Yeah.
I was comparing it to fortitude.
I see. I apologize. But yeah, this is one of my favorite merits. Honestly, the fact that Paul Milliner did not take this, like I remember the character creation video, and he thought about it. He was really thinking about it,
Oh yeah,
and
no,
then he did.
Davica
He
put some
didn't.
thought into his characters.
He didn't take this merit, and I'm like, that is a bold decision.
Hmm.
and and then he also went on to take the flaw that restricts you from taking this merit.
Hmm.
And I'm like, this man is nuts.
Yeah, no, he was ready, and he also didn't have any like at first when he was creating the character, he didn't have any oh this guy's gonna survive mentality.
Yeah, he played to lose.
Yeah, and like at like on the character creation video, you can see he also took steak bait.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and as a thin blood, I basically just say, yeah, you stake a human, it dies.
Yeah,
You know, that's effectively what that means. And
I
that
mean, it
that
makes a
that
lot
was
of
the
sense.
one flaw I couldn't like fulfill. Like I really wanted just everybody's merits and flaws to come forefront in this, but like that would have
Yeah,
just been automatically killing him for no reason. And like he was
yeah,
doing so well. I was rooting for Paul.
I was too. I mean, steak bait. That's a whole other
Hmm.
ordeal to get into, but like that's the you know why that flaw is a 2 point flaw,
Because
other than the
you can
fact that it
only
sucks.
take because you can only take 2 points, and that's as high as it'll go. And
Well,
it
yes,
used to be
you
a 7 point flaw in the older systems.
yes, but I'm saying like it's a 1 point. I would argue that the effect of it is 1 point. The other point of it is the fact that your character doesn't know.
That's
There's no way for
yeah,
them
no,
to
you that's
know.
there's no way to know. That's absolutely true. It's going to be a surprise. And I don't know
It's
how
a
many times I've run plot lines where the group, the coterie that was involved decided the only way to do something was to actually stake one of their people.
Mhm.
Like we're going to stake you and sneak you in and then have you unstaked and like you'll be our inner, you know, you'll be our guy on the inside. What would have happened if that would have been Paul?
Yeah.
And the worst
He
part is
it,
they wouldn't have known.
nope.
For the most part, they literally would have staked him and mailed a dead body.
Yep.
God, that would have been bad.
And like
Uh,
what do you do when like a coder member like frenzies and there's just no way to console them to
yep,
get them out of the frenzy. You stake them and let it run its course.
absolutely.
So yeah, that fall sucks, dude.
Yeah, that flaw sucks. The very last thing before we get into like archetypes and stuff like that
Sure.
is a section in the Thin Blood part of the core book called Ways Out.
This is fascinating.
This is an optional thought when it comes to the Thin Blood, and we actually kind of lightly glossed over part of it when we were talking about how like you could diablerize and be brought into a full clan.
Hmm.
But this also implies the chance that the Thin Blood could very well become a full human again. That there are
Hmm.
ways for them to actually step out of the shadows and into the light. And that there's a massive danger in that because if they did become human again, they are now a human out there with the knowledge that they have and they're a threat to the masquerade.
Yep.
So like what are your thoughts on the idea of becoming human again as a thin blood?
I I'm of two minds on this one.
Mhm.
So there's the yes and storyteller in me who's like, okay, if this is what you want to do, I'll take it and I'll run with that, you know. And then there's the s- then there's the like, I don't know, evil storyteller, I guess,
Mhm.
who's like, part of the horror of this game is there is no way out. The only way out is death. You know, so like presenting an option for them to find a way out is what's the word? It's too happy ending. Even though I know it's not a happy
I
ending,
mean,
like
is it?
because
Cuz now you're hunted down by organizations of kindred.
true.
I mean, you might
Um,
think you have a happy ending until 2 days later, and you get drive-by ghouls at noon.
yeah,
Like, you
that's
don't
true.
know.
I mean, yeah, you can definitely twist it and turn it back into a horror element.
Hmm.
I think that the I don't know. I think that the impending, like the overlooming fact of there is no way out of undeath is one of the biggest like parts of the tragedy of being a
Yeah.
vampire. It's like someone did this to you and there's no way out.
Well,
And
this
the
is
only
also this is optional.
yeah, yeah, I
Because
know.
when you read the description, it says that every thin blood knows someone who's returned to the daylight.
Yeah.
Like,
And
the
now
idea is that it could just be a rumor.
yeah. And maybe I write it off too quickly for my games in that it is just a rumor, right?
Hmm.
In my head canon, it's just a rumor. There's no actual way back to the daylight. Maybe I'm too quick to write that off. I think that there's definitely some interesting storylines that could be told. I mean, kind of that hunter character we were talking about earlier. What if it's the opposite?
Hmm.
What if they were a thin blood who came back from the shadows
And decided to
and
become a
now they're
hunter.
a hunter? Yeah.
I mean, there is that. Is somebody who
Uh,
knows their ways, knows where they meet, knows how to find them,
yeah. Knows what to
can
look for
identify the
the
signs.
yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know, it feels a little too hopeful, even though like I know it's a short-lived hope.
No, but it'd
But
be
it
a
feel
hell of
it
a scary NPC now, wouldn't it?
oh, absolutely a scary NPC. Like I would I would make it a canon thing that it's possible just to make that
Just to throw that
NPC as
NPC in there? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I would.
All right.
Like you get like the you know, I don't know what I don't know military rank, but you get like a bunch of like you get a military officer with like 8 tours in his of wartime in his belt, embraces a thin blood when he comes home.
Hmm.
Find like Punishers his way through hordes of ghouls and other thin bloods trying to find a way out,
Yeah.
finds it, and then goes on to be like the leader of the SI of an SI branch.
Hmm.
That's terrifying.
Well, how would you achieve this?
Golconda's the first thing that comes to mind. So
I don't see Golconda as a you've reached humanity high enough to become humanity a human again. Like, in
I
my
don't either.
mind, if a thin blood reached Golconda, it would mean that all of the limitations of being a thin blood fell off. They now have access to all of the disciplines. Like,
With all the benefits
that's
of being a thin
yeah,
blood.
that's they would
Yeah,
have blood sorcery, or they would have thin blood alchemy and disciplines at that point in time. They like a thin blood on Golconda is the most terrifying thing in the world, in my opinion.
yeah. So
Um,
I
but
mean,
like, how would you
but
become
think about
human
that for a
again?
second. So think about that for a second, really quickly though,
Hmm.
and I'll answer your question. You have a thin blood who finds Golconda.
Yeah.
They then gain all of the benefits of being a thin blood
Hmm.
with none of the downsides.
Yep.
They've made their way back to the daylight.
Okay.
They can go into the sun.
Yeah, but they're not human.
They sure.
They're not human. They're not human at this point. But like, if you were running a story where like, let's look at L.A. by Night, where there was
Hmm.
a episode of L.A. by Night where the ghoul, I can never remember his name, which is sad because he was such an awesome character and probably one of my favorite characters.
Oh, Daffodil,
Huh?
the guy that was called was codenamed Daffodil.
Yeah, Daffodil, the guy who was like he was a hunter. He was an
Hmm.
organization hunter,
Yep.
and he got like entrenched into Nelly G's web. And then you've
Yep.
got Eve, and they broke in, and they were trying, and they broke into a hunter area where the Society of Leopold was doing some type of blood transfusion on a ghoul trying to heal them, on
Yeah.
Chloe.
Yeah.
What if they were just pumping her full of like holy water or blessed blood or something like that, and that turned Thin Bloods human again? Like,
I mean that's an interesting thought.
there's that. There's like you found a way to like will your way through things with touchstones. Like, there's so many different ways you could decide is the way to handle this.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, and
what if it
that's
was
the
the
funnest part
classic?
about it.
What if it was the classic shit? You killed your sire.
I was actually going to bring that up. because when you first asked the question,
Hmm.
the first thing that came to mind was the Thin Bloods and Bloodlines on the beach.
Yeah, no, me too. Like, does
It's
the
like
blood
who's
transfusion work? Unicorn blood.
yeah, oh,
What?
unicorn blood. What if I kill the head vampire?
With a
Well, are
holy
you ready to
steak.
kill? Yeah, I got a holy stake for you right here. Well, who is it? It's the president of the United
Oh,
States.
see, I always sent him after LaCroix.
I mean, I think the president one's a lot funnier.
I told him that he was in the top floor of the Venture Towers, and he went running off. And then, like, later on, you go talk to LaCroix, and he's like, "We had a security breach earlier. The strangest thing." Like, you've definitely condemned that character to death, but it's hilarious.
Oh yeah,
Um,
you lose the humanity regardless of what you tell
I
him.
don't think I did, but it was funny.
Yeah. Well, you lose the
Anyway,
humanity if you tell him it's the
do
president.
you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't. It's been
But
a while since I played the game.
but yeah. And he's like, well, what about blood transfusions? Like only
If it's
unicorn blood,
unicorn
buddy.
blood,
Yeah.
you believe in
Um.
vampires, but you don't believe in unicorns? Come on. I mean, that's a hell of an argument right there, truthfully.
I mean, it's an unfortunate it's an unfortunate uh argument though because there's no validity to it
How?
either.
Yeah, but like you just got done talking to like Therese Vorman, who is like, yes, ghosts exist. So do
Yeah.
demons, werewolves, mummies, and a bunch of other stuff that I probably don't know about. Like
Yeah.
at that point, you're just like, screw it, I'm getting a unicorn. Like, all right, so
Uh,
thin blood archetypes. We really need to get into this because we are over an hour at this point.
are we?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's touch on them real fast then.
Huh?
We can just go over them real quick, but if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
want.
I do, because these are really fun. These are a lot of fun, actually. I like the second to last one specifically, but let's hop on this. We've got the live one. This thin blood is deeply connected to the mortal world, perhaps more so than the kindred one. They still maintain a family and attempt to hold a job, paying bills, is even more important than the whims of some baron they have never met. Ironically, to maintain their human facade, they likely have to lean heavily on the powers of the blood. This kind of makes me think of um, the uh, the coteries of New York, thin blood primogen.
Yeah,
He has a family. He
he
has a
does.
job.
Yeah.
Like he is such a risk to the masquerade, and I'm really surprised that the prince is even letting it happen.
Yeah, but what's his name? Kadir, the
Hmm.
sheriff. He's on constant watch
Oh yeah, no, I really would
over
not be
him.
surprised if he has just like automatic kill switch on the whole house.
Oh yeah.
Like that's, but it is very an interesting concept of I am maintaining my life.
Hmm.
Regardless of what has happened to me, I am not giving up what I have, and I kind of have a lot of respect for the live one.
Yeah, yeah. It's an admirable. It's a very strong-willed and
Yeah,
admirable character to
I
hold
would
on to
not be
that.
able to do that.
I would.
I'm very much the person who would abandon my entire family for their safety. Like I just could not put my family in that kind of danger.
Well, I mean, if you're a thin blood though,
Yeah.
depending on the falls you take, you might not really be a danger to them.
I mean,
That's
it's not about me, it's about the things that are on the outside.
that's a good point.
Like I consider myself a very good driver. I still don't trust anybody out there on the road in a car other than myself.
That's just smart.
So, it's kind of the same situation. It's like, yeah, I can not frenzy. I can get cheaper rent because if I feed on the right person, I can dominate my landlord. I can do a whole bunch of things to make my life better. But I know I'm being watched by things that would eat my family without a freaking warning.
Yeah.
And that would
Well,
just terrify me.
they're a bargaining chip to manipulate you.
Exactly. Exactly. It just puts them in danger, and I do not like it. After
Right.
that, we have the weapon of convenience. A former occultist, ghoul, or blood doll. They were close to the kindred before joining their ranks and knew some of their secrets. This thin blood was embraced out of their sire's desperation when backed into a corner. and they were meant to take part in some war or perhaps vengeful dream. Whether they chose to do so or not is up to them. The embrace released them from former slavery, and now there is nothing forcing them to do their sire's bidding. So the idea of you being a ghoul, because like in Camarilla society, like generation was never really a thing
Hmm.
in the old games that I used to play in. Nobody knew what their generation was unless they wanted to give their blood to a Tremere to find out.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you got the rare Ventru who could track their entire lineage,
Yeah.
you know? But for the most part, like, Bruja, a lot of them didn't know what their generation was. Toreador, maybe, but probably not. But
They
unless you,
they think they know what their generation is.
yeah, and
Most of
there's
them are wrong.
a lot of them who think they know what their generations are. Absolutely. What if you learn your generation? What if you learn generation stylings from a ministry, like an old Setite ministry member?
Oh yeah.
Like they count first generation as Set,
Yep.
so you think that you're like 10th gen, and you're actually 13th. Like there's so many things that could pop up with this one, but I like the idea of they embrace you and you're free. That's interesting.
But are you?
I mean, you have a better
For the
chance.
sake of being a devil's advocate here, I'm on board with what you're saying.
Hmm.
But like, are you free? Like that's an interesting thought.
Maybe not necessarily, but you're definitely not bound the same way your sire would think you are.
I also could see this being
It
like,
could be worse, but
no, well, yeah, I was gonna say being the, because it says weapon of convenience.
mhm,
You were a thin blood Sabat's
mhm,
shovelhead. You were made to do a dirty fight, and it all went up in flames, and you're all that's left.
mhm,
And now you're free
mhm.
until you're not. But yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's a
And I
cool
mean,
concept.
yeah, it's a neat concept. I like that one. I like the idea of the shovel head
I,
specifically.
I like the idea of the blood doll specifically.
Yeah, you're used to being fed on and stuff. You're a favorite of the local
Hmm.
kindred, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
That's a lot of fun.
you you're like the ghoul Patty, who think that
Oh
you're
God, I
special
hated
or
her
whatever.
so much.
Oh yeah, you think that
I
you're special, or
oh my God,
you relish, you almost fetishize. Is that word, fetishize?
fetishize works,
Yeah. Uh,
dude.
like the idea of being desired and wanted for your blood, right?
There is not a video game character that I have killed in more ways than Patty from Bloodlines One. That
She is the
voice,
worst.
dude. Blunt force trauma, slashing weapons, the axe, shotgun, draining.
The severed
Like,
arm.
dude, the severed arm. I killed her with every single thing. She's the most obnoxious NPC.
Yeah.
So whiny. I wanted to find that Toreador that made her into a ghoul and beat her with him. Like,
Well,
don't create
I can tell you
stupid
where
things.
I can tell you where he's at. You want to know where he's at?
No, he's dead, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's burned alive in Grout's mansion.
You think so? Like the one that's chained to the bed and staked?
No, that's Grout. The one that's in the weird like antechamber where sunlight magically is coming through in the middle of the night.
Really?
Yeah, you can pick it. There's a skeleton and a pile of ash on the ground
Uh
laying
huh.
next to the lever that, and you can collect his ID. It's Kent Allen Ryan,
Oh
the
my god!
Toreador.
So there is actually a defined. Oh wow!
Yeah,
Okay, that's part of the game that I didn't know about. That makes me very, very happy. Well,
yeah,
knowing
I
that
don't know
he's
why
dead.
he's there, but
Well,
he's dead.
because the Malkavian Primogen was kind of a nutball. I don't know if you noticed that or not.
What? He seemed totally sane to me.
Okay, well, did you listen to all the recordings? Come on, man.
Every time, every
Yeah,
single time.
every single
I can't
time.
play that. I can't play through that level without Grout's soothing voice and serenading me as I murder every one of
I spend so
his
much time just standing
sociopaths.
still in rooms waiting for the recordings to end. All
Nah,
right.
man.
After that, we have the guilty embrace. This thin blood was not embraced as part of some elaborate plan. A partygoer, a late night worker walking home alone, or just someone in the wrong place at the wrong time. A vampire fed from them and drank a little too much. Perhaps the embrace was performed by the drinker as an act of desperate guilt, or perhaps the sire was an onlooker who couldn't bear to watch them die. So this is actually kind of interesting because I've seen this kind of thing happen in a game where somebody
Hmm.
accidentally kills while feeding and automatically goes, "Oh God, I gotta embrace them."
Hmm.
Like I can't let them die. I can't murder somebody. You're killing them anyway, regardless. You're
Yeah.
ending a human life, and
Yeah.
I like the idea of like an onlooker going, "Oh no, I have to stop this from happening." Like that's a very interesting consideration. I like the idea of the guilty embrace.
Yeah. This to me paints like a really tragic story from beginning to end.
Hmm.
That is this is the story. This is the concept for a game where relationships are the primary focus of the game.
I can
Because
see
you're going to
that.
have the relationship of the one who killed you. You're going to have the relationship with the one who made you if they're not the same person.
Yeah. Yeah, now
And
you're hunting
now
down
you're
the person who just left you.
yeah,
Like there
and
could be a whole
and
thing.
yeah, and now you're in the situation where I mean, you don't you this is the game, the concept for the game where the storyteller is like not gonna they're gonna introduce the vampire politics, but they're gonna do it very gracefully and very subtly.
Hmm.
Where like things happen in the game, but there's no evidence that it's vampire related.
Yeah.
As your character's realizing, like, oh man, this world is way more twisted and ancient than I thought. You know what I mean?
I would love to have new players who have never played Vampire the Masquerade, who have never read anything,
Yeah.
and just walk them through it.
Mm-hmm.
I would really, really love that. I got to experience a little bit of that recently with a game that I ran, where it was a game that has been going on for a while. That another storyteller is running them. They're probably listening to this video right now, but they, but like their storyteller has strategically not thrown things at them. Like
Yeah.
he's doing it so well. I'm so
Mm-hmm.
impressed that like these people understand how their characters work. They understand what they're capable of. But like I threw one thing that I thought was a common everyday night thing occurrence to them, and they just was like, "What the hell is this thing?" And it brought out so much fun role play, and like walking somebody in and I'd love to run a game where everybody just starts off as human, and I'll see if it takes a night, a week, a month, a year before I bring supernatural into it at all.
Yeah, I just want to play that game. Like that is the one thing I've been waiting for.
Hmm.
I've played a lot of VTM and like World of Darkness. I
Yeah,
want that game
you
where
want the
like
slow burn.
I want the slow burn.
Yeah,
I want to like build the character, build the relationships. Let the story be about the relationships and the characters,
yeah. Like
and
how much
then
fun would it be to be playing, and then like a year later, you're like, oh, there's a leader of vampires called the Prince, and he's been here the whole time.
no,
Shit,
I'm like
that masquerade
I
was
mean
good.
yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be real with you. Play the game for a year and find out. Wait, vampires exist?
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know,
Yeah,
and then you're running around a thin blood or with thin bloods, going, man, you guys are so powerful. You know,
yeah,
like it's crazy. And then they're like, yeah, it's pretty cool. And then you start to think
yeah.
you understand it,
Wait until you meet
and
the assholes downtown.
yeah, then the
Yeah,
guys from downtown catch wind of you guys being there. It's like, yeah, that's the kind of slow burn game that I love.
I really want to run that. I
I really
really
want to
do.
play that.
That's gonna have to happen eventually. Okay. Um.
Dark Knights 2,
So right.
Electric
so
Boogaloo.
so the next one is my favorite in the description for thin blood archetypes.
Can I read this one?
Yeah, go for it. I just love it.
The Natural Vampire?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this thin blood was destined to become one of the Kindred. As a mortal hunter or a member of Arcanum, they studied the lore of the clans, the myth of Cain, and became too fascinated for their own good. Meaning to kill, question, or request the embrace, they tracked down one of the Kindred. but their sire was not what they expected by the child, who is now bitter at the weakness in their veins.
I really like that.
I also really
I
like that one.
really
That's why
like
I asked to
that.
read it.
That's such a good one. The idea that like you've been learning and learning and learning, but the whole concept of thin blood escaped you.
Yeah.
And like you're like, "Yay, I'm one of them now." And you're like, "Wait, no I'm not."
Hmm.
Like this is going to be the vampire who says, "Screw it. I've come this far. I'm going to diablerize someone."
Oh
Like
yeah,
someone who
yeah,
wants to be a vampire.
yeah. This is the character who's destined for diablerie.
But at that point, you're also able, since you know, you can choose what clan you want.
Yeah,
Like you start
you can
kidnapping clans until
systematically
you
like
find the right one.
you can like get full on Dexter about it and
Yep.
like I'm gonna diablerize that one.
Yep. You
Yeah.
find out who exactly you want to be a part of. And like it's a whole new different layer of monster at that
Hmm.
point.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
That's a low humanity one for
last but
sure.
not least, we come to the Redemption Seeker. This thin blood was turned against their will and refuses to accept a place in the world of streetlights and blood. They are recently turned and desperately look for a way to cure their condition, seeking out rumors of others who have done it as well as weird legends of Golconda and blood transfusions. There is indeed a way, but before they figure it out, this thin blood will try anything and is easy to manipulate by callous kindred. This is a story of tragedy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. This is the story of the guy desperately seeking the cure,
Yeah.
only to be misled at every turn
I
and
uh, as an
eventually killed for it.
as an ST, I'm pretty sure that I would allow somebody to go on this journey over and over again, trying to figure things out, find the last thing that's actually going to do it, and have it not work.
Yep.
Like, I see this story, if I do my job as a storyteller well enough,
Yeah.
ends with this vampire finding a way and just sitting in the sun until it's over. Like, this is a story of desperation, depression, and just finality of giving up eventually.
It is. I completely. I was of the same mind, but as you were saying that, I realized that there's also another story to be
Hmm.
told with this, and it's at first glance the exact same story.
Hmm.
However, if you kind of mix it with the slow burn like we were
Hmm.
talking about, this is the character who finally loses. Like they finally lose hope, and they
Hmm.
just they either give up completely
Hmm.
or they go, okay, there's no way out.
Yeah.
Doesn't work. I can I can either give up, meet the sun, or I can just make the best of what life has given me.
Hmm.
And so either way, you have a really satisfying conclusion to this character's story.
Yeah. You know how I would end this? And it would definitely have to be a ending. Like we're not going to have another session. This is the end of it. Like it's a preset. We're going to do this storyline and it's over story.
Mm-hmm.
I would have them this is the duality of my brain. Like the whole I would never let it happen or I would do this.
Yeah.
Um I would let them heal themselves and become human again. And just as that was happening, the adrenaline and the horrible like stuff that they had gone through to get where they were would finally have gotten to the breaking point, and they'd turn into a guru.
Oh,
I
I thought
would
you were going to say something far worse.
no, I would I
Like,
my end of the game would be their first turn.
that's so. Oh, that's rough, dude.
Yeah, because
That's actually
werewolf is a lot
really.
worse of a it's a lot worse of a mental game. Like I've got a game like I've played Guru, I've played Werewolf the Apocalypse with people who have played vampires under me for years,
Mm-hmm.
And like
Werewolf.
the people who played werewolf with me looked at me, and it was Davica, David, and Gwen
Yep.
from Thicker Than Water. Gwen, by the way, also is a veteran werewolf player. He's been playing werewolf a hell of a lot longer than I've been playing vampire.
Yeah.
But like all three of them, as we ran this game, looked at me and went, "This is just too much.
It's way worse.
This is emotionally draining. Being a werewolf is so much worse than being a vampire. Like
Oh yeah.
like it was such a fucking amazing plot line. And if you like watch the werewolf sections of Thicker Than
It's
Water, it's
so
like it's
good.
so good. And I'll completely admit it's not a story that I wrote either. I embellished upon it, but it's actually the story that's
In the
located in the
behind
core
book.
book for Werewolf. But like it is gut wrenching. And it's
It's
not
so
even
good.
just the werewolf stuff, it's all of the things that you have to deal with the humans who are just innocent bystanders.
Yeah, I think Werewolf Fifth Edition hit it on the head, but
Yeah.
we will
We'll
definitely get there.
we'll get
I'll be
there.
honest with you. I thought you were gonna say you would let them the adrenaline and everything of their heart beating and like them coming back to life
Just a heart attack.
just to then succumb. Or I would end it. This is how I would end it. I would end that story. They achieve becoming human again,
Mm-hmm. Drive
and
by.
then no. Way more cruel than a
Okay.
drive-by. I
Vampire
would
walks up
end
and
it.
drains them.
I would end it with a cinematic of them like sighing in relief and crying tears of joy, having
Mm-hmm.
finally got there. And then I would do a flash forward, like I would describe it cinematically
Mm-hmm.
in a way that is like there's no sound. It's just that character sitting across the desk, piece of paper in their hand, and the person across the desk is in a white coat saying, and you just mouthing the words, "I'm so sorry," and all you can see on the paper is they've tested positive for like cancer or something.
Dude, oh,
Yeah,
that just
it's so much
dropped my.
worse.
Oh my god.
So much worse.
You know what? No, at that point, I would be like, screw you. I just got this. I'm fighting with every fiber of my being. Nothing is getting me. Like,
Yeah,
like, and if it did, I would go out as weak as I am in that whole situation, just going, I fricking did it my way, and nothing's going to change my mind about that one. Like,
and
if
I
anything, I still kind of see that as a triumph of the human spirit, you know?
yeah. Well, I mean, I should have maybe prefaced with like a trigger warning before I said that, because I've watched what
I,
cancer can do to
yeah,
a family member
I,
recently.
I
It's really
have,
tragic. It's really
yeah,
tragic.
I've
But
experienced that kind of stuff too,
but
and yeah,
I have never in my entire life seen a stronger display of just human spirit
just
and
outright
tenacity,
defiance.
defiance. The and I've seen that person, in some pretty dark spots where like hope was bleak,
Yeah,
but they never gave up, even to the end. And that is the kind of this concept. This got really deep out of
it really
nowhere.
did,
This concept really,
as it
I think, is
should.
deserving. I think this concept is 1000% deserving of that kind of like parallel or thematic, that theme
Yeah,
to the character's ending of the story is just a sadness, but also another fight, just to show like they got another fight coming.
yeah,
It's a very different type of fight.
yeah. That is definitely something that I probably would not have thought about doing something like that. Um, I think I was just still going on the supernatural curse aspect when I was
I'm
like
sorry, but
werewolf. No,
if you're
no,
gonna if you're
like
gonna have a story where you're
that is
fighting
an
to be human,
amazingly heart-filled story, and I think it
yeah,
should be told somewhere. You know.
yeah. If your character's whole story is to be human again,
Hmm. You're gonna have to
then
deal with the human issues.
you have to deal with human issues. Yeah, the tragedy of humanity.
Yeah.
But that's maybe too real for some people.
I mean, and that's why the storytellers get to choose what happens, and that's why
Yep.
lines and veils exist.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know if you've ever seen this or if anybody who's watching this has seen. I'm sure some of you guys have. There's like over 2,000 of you at this point. Um, but the show HBO had a show a few years ago called 6 Feet Under,
I
and
haven't.
it is the story about a family who runs a funeral home. And I will tell you that it is one of the most heart-filled, funny, tragic, horrific, amazing stories I have ever seen. They touch on so much stuff. And like on the very last episode, they do like flash forwards
Hmm.
and they give you the obituary of every single character that you watched. Because
That
the whole thing's just built around a funeral home, so of course they do. It tells you
yeah,
how every character died.
that
And
is really
it's
that's like bittersweet.
it is a heart wrenching it is it's just a heart wrenching experience to
Hmm.
watch that whole thing. And it's like I'm pretty sure it's like 6 years, like it's a 6 season show. And
Oh, really?
like yeah, you actually at one point like you actually get to watch a like we binge. Like
Yeah, I do.
we pick a show and just go, this is what exists in our life now. Um,
Yeah.
and there's it didn't real I didn't realize how long everything was until I went, wait a minute, that newborn baby is now 6. Like
Oh, wow.
yeah, like you get to watch a child grow up. Um, but anyway, great cast, great show, great premise, amazing stories, and like every episode like starts with who they're working on that episode in the funeral home. So it's a very interesting, it's a very morbid story. But if you're watching this, I'm sure you're into that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll stop
If
blabbing
it,
about shows that are over
if
now.
you're this far into tapping the vein, you're here for three reasons. One, our incredible personalities. Two,
We
we
are
recommend really
dynamic.
good shows. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we are, and we recommend. Two, we recommend really good things to watch and read. And three, because we get deep.
We
We
do.
get into some really deep
Dude,
conversations here.
I've had the most amazing comments come through lately, and I really feel bad because I haven't been able to answer most of them because
I know I've been so busy
I
lately.
don't have time right now, and I really want to because some of these things, like I've read some comments that have like actually brought tears to my eyes. Like they're
Aw,
just freaking amazing community we have here.
they're honestly a lot of fun people,
Yeah.
a lot of great people.
So yeah, you know what? This is the last episode of Tapping the Vein for this section.
Yeah.
We actually have decided that we are going to take a little bit of a break. Let
Yep,
us
we'll be
catch
off
our
next week.
breaths. We are not going to have one come out next week. Uh,
Yep.
but the next after that, we'll be back on with the player's guide, going with the Banu Hakim, which is just funny as it is anyway. Um, but I think now is a good time to just say like this community means so much to me, and I am so happy to have all 2,100 of you at the time of this filming in my life. You guys are awesome. I love hearing from you. Answering your comments is a great joy for me, and it kind of sucks that like the more of you that are there, which lifts my heart up every time I see another number, also brings me down because I know it's so hard for me to keep up with you all. Um, but yeah, so I guess sorry that was me getting all sappy. Um,
Nah, I mean, look, I've been a fan of the channel since we were like 200 subscribers.
yeah,
You had, um, and I've been friends with you since 250, 300 subscribers.
yeah,
So like this community is, I'm honored to be a part of it.
mm-hmm.
But if because we are in we're in our fields from the deep story stuff.
Yeah,
But this is the end of this first segment of tapping the vein. And I want to take a minute and say like thank you to everyone who has been really well like received me and being involved in the YouTube channel.
yeah,
I've been received really well, and I've had a lot of people message me and say like they loved it, or like you know they were happy with the way that like I described something that meant something to them,
yeah,
or that I've showed respect in a way that was they appreciated. and it's not like hundreds of people, but like the handful of people who do it, I genuinely appreciate.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I get
and
comments about how awesome it is that I have somebody who's able to bounce off each other as well as we do. So,
yeah, funny enough, I actually had somebody that this series uh brought somebody that I haven't kind of had a falling out and hadn't spoke to in a while. And they messaged me and were like, "Hey, I'm really happy with what you're doing. You think you're a great addition to the show or to the channel. Keep up the good work." And I'm
mhm.
like, thank you very much. So yeah, thank you guys. And I hope I can get to be involved more with the community as time goes on.
Yeah.
Life is crazy busy right now, but
Yeah.
um, in the future, I would love to be like this. I would love for this to
Yeah.
be my life, like all the time. So maybe one day in the future we can get there, but until then, you guys keep being awesome. That's
Yeah.
that's all I got. That's this week's challenge. Like, you
Absolutely.
can
Just
come
keep being
at me,
awesome.
in the Discord about Thin Bloods. Obviously, we're not going to stop
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
But
yeah.
like, your challenge for the next 2 weeks is just keep being awesome.
I guess on that, final thoughts on Thin Bloods? Have I changed your mind about anything?
Yeah, I want to play one now.
Yeah, you want to play one?
I want to play the hunter concept.
The Hunter concept? Yeah, that sounds like a
Yeah,
lot of fun.
it does
Okay,
sound like a lot of fun.
self promotion, man. Self promotion.
Yeah, I am Silent Comedy. I am I am I the sole administrator on the Discord right now?
I think so. Like,
Okay, so
we had
I
a couple, but like life has gotten in the way, and
right,
like
yeah,
yeah,
as it does.
as it
Yeah.
does.
So in that case, then I am the sole administrator of the Our World of
The
Darkness
the
Discord.
the the
Indisputed.
undisputed baron of the Discord community.
That's right. I'm the undisputed baron of the Our World of Darkness Discord,
That's awesome.
where the people of the community come hang out, come chat. We've actually had a lot of traffic in the Discord,
Hmm.
which it used to be like really slow. Now
Yeah, it
I'm
used to
seeing
be a
stuff in there
trickle.
yeah, it was a trickle. Like every now and again, somebody would say something. Now we get something in there like multiple times a day.
That's
I
awesome.
love it.
That's awesome.
I love it. Um, yeah, but I hang out over there. I lurk a lot. I read every message that goes in. I don't have any channels muted, so I read everything. I just don't always have a chance to reply to everything. Um, and then I am also, I guess at this point now, doubly it's been made official a few weeks ago, but like the community manager for Our
Hmm.
World of Darkness as well.
Yep.
Um, I am also I guess it's like a independent or like freelance character creation consultant. You can request my services for assistance with character creations. There is a small fee for that time devoted to it, but I do make help write really thorough characters. Maquette can attest to this.
Yes.
Now that fee is waived if you are a member of the Patreon, which is no gain to me. I'm just doing it to help Maquette. Um,
Which I
if
appreciate.
you are, yeah, of course, man, anything to help the channel. If you are a member of I think it's $35 tier.
Yeah, the highest tier currently at the time of this filming is the $35 tier, which is the Denizens of Our World of Darkness, which interacts with the game that I run every Friday night at my table in my
Yeah.
house. So,
And if
and
you
I
are a
put
member of
videos
that,
up.
yeah, if you're a member of that tier, I am offering free character creation consultation. If you have a character that's done, or you have something that's not quite, you're like, I like it, but it's not quite there yet, or
Yeah,
like, I just need help fleshing out this aspect that I want to do. Let me know. I love brainstorming characters. I don't know how. There's no telling how many characters Maquette and I have sit and just brainstormed about.
well, I
But
mean, we'll
it's not
talk,
just
and it just
characters
turns
either.
into a character.
Yeah, it's not just characters either, though. It's also settings and like world building. I'm a big creative like developer guy.
Hmm.
I've got a lot of experience in that kind of thing. So if, people are interested in services for that, like helping flesh out worlds and settings and themes for games and stories, um, you can request those services. Um, Other than that, I think the only thing I've really got cooking right now outside of Our World of Darkness, which is really not even outside of it, is Darkness Emergent
Yep.
in June. Yeah. Darkness Emergent in June. Sixth is it 6th through 9th or 5th through 9th? I can never.
Sixth,
I say it every
sixth
week,
through
but I can't
ninth.
remember.
It's going to be the
Yeah,
6th through ninth. The 5th is my birthday, so
yeah. Party on the
yeah,
way to
party on the way.
Chicago. I'll also be playing at Mekhet's table for some of the tabletop events.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think that's pretty much it that I've got going on right now. I mean, I stay pretty busy with my actual profession.
Hmm.
Uh, so I don't have a lot of projects in the work for my passion
We'll get you there.
projects, you
We'll
know.
get you there.
But we're getting there. We're getting
We'll
there
get you
slowly
there.
but surely. We're getting there. It's that
Okay.
slow burn. But
Uh,
yeah, thanks for having me.
thank you. Thank you for being here, man. Like seriously. I am voivodemekhet, and I built this crazy thing that we're all doing right now. And I am also going to be at the Darkness Emergent as a huge 41st birthday celebration for me.
Whoop,
As I portray myself as a neonate Zamitzi who is just trying to not die in the
and also
courts
not bring his friend down with him.
in the courts of Prince Kevin Jackson in Chicago. Uh,
I'm so scared.
I am terrified and excited at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, you know what? I think the best thing for me to really to talk up right now, aside from the fact that I will be running games and there is still room at the time of this recording for the Saturday uh, game, which is Ancille Anarchs, which is going to be a lot of fun. Um, but in my town that I live in Lee County, Florida, I am going to be running a Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition LARP using the 5th edition Laws of the Night system at Cool Comics and Games located in Cape Coral, Florida. And people, if you are in the area, I'm not putting a limit on players. You guys can just come in, and I've got so many options available. No clan is out of bounds. No story is beneath my trying to figure out if we can fit it in somewhere. We have quite the cast of characters that are already coming together, and I am looking forward to get this thing going. The first night is going to be July 6th, which is a Saturday at 8 p.m. Till midnight. Please show up a little early and give some love to Cool Comics and Games by checking out their merch and also like buying a drink or something like that, just as a thank you for letting us use the area after closing. Nonetheless, I'm just excited to run a LARP again.
That's so good, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've not really like had an official LARP going since the Rona, right?
Actually, we were like the whole plague was starting to rear its ugly head, but there were no official like rulings on how we were supposed
Hmm.
to live our lives at the time.
Yeah.
And on Daviga's birthday, we organized getting a LARP going in our backyard. Like we set up tents and like all this other stuff, not like camping tents, but like pop-ups to like set
Yeah.
up different buildings and stuff. We had this amazing plot line that happened. People came. We had so many new players who had showed up. Everybody was so excited to do this thing. And that night, while we were in middle of game, a broadcast went out, and on all of our phones we caught the announcement that everybody was doing quarantine,
Mm,
and the game fell apart
yeah.
right then and there. So like the moment the moment they instituted quarantine was the last time that I was able to run a LARP. Not counting the events like at Sanguine Samba and stuff at Gen Con and stuff like
Right.
events,
Yeah.
but like a long-standing continuous story such as this once a month LARP that we're going to be running in Cape Coral, Florida, starting in July. That you're all invited to if you're in the area. Um, but yeah, it's been a while, and I'm super super excited to get a story out, which is going to be not officially connected to, but the story will be running side by side with the Darkness Emergent story.
Let's go.
Yeah, I'm super excited. So that's all I got to say. So I guess again I thank everybody for joining us with this amazing thing, and I thank Silent Comedy for being an amazing like companion to share this with. And
No.
yeah, and we will see you guys in 2 weeks.
Yep. Where we will pick up the Banu Hakim.
Exactly. We are going to handle
The,
the assassins next.
we're gonna handle them again.
Yeah, this will be the second time us doing this, but where it's going to work this time.
Long awaited. Yeah.
Yeah.
We hope. All right.
All right.
Is it time? Is it time for to say
Yep.
the thing
Say your thing. Say your catchphrase
for the last time in the next 2 weeks?
for the last
Drop
time.
that sick outro.
All right. Bye.